Alright, let's fucking get it. Third video, let's go. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is Anderson Kinsey here, and in this video I'm going to be breaking down whether or not sleep is an important factor in gaining muscle. So all I ask in return for making this video for you all is to leave a like on the video, and I gotta do it, my subscribe pillow. Subscribe if you're new around here, and also make sure to leave any questions or future video ideas in the comment section below. So I know what you're thinking, does sleep affect muscle mass? Let's find out. So according to a 2010 study on underslept individuals versus normally slept individuals, sleep does in fact play a role in retaining muscle mass and losing fat. So this study that I'm talking about measures the loss of fat and the loss of fat-free body mass, which is your muscle, on overweight individuals averaging age around 40, and there was 3 women and 7 men. So these individuals were put on a moderate caloric restriction. And again, I apologize if I'm looking down too much. I'm actually looking at my screen right now. Anyways, they put on a moderate caloric restriction for 2 weeks, 14 days, and were put into 2 different sleeping groups, either 8.5 hours of sleep a night or 5.5 hours of sleep a night. So what were the results? The results were the 8.5 hours of sleep group averaged about 55% less fat and preserved about 60% more muscle over the 2-week period. The 5.5 hours of sleep group averaged about 55% more fat and lost about 60% more muscle. So this study was on overweight individuals, and there was also a moderate caloric restriction. It doesn't say exactly how moderate of a caloric restriction was involved, but it is safe to assume that the caloric restriction did play a major factor in the numbers here. So just keep that in mind. But with everything in mind here, this study still does show credible evidence on the lack of sleep harming your fat burning ability and your muscle retention, basically. Alright, now here's a second study to take into consideration. So this study took 15 healthy participants and measured their DNA methylation in adipose tissue and skeletal muscle samples in the morning fasted state, both done after 1 night of normal sleep and 1 night of sleep loss. So I just said a bunch of big words there, so I'm going to break them down for you. So DNA methylation is a process where methyl groups are added to the DNA molecule. So I had to Google all this stuff, by the way. Adipose tissue is loose connective tissue that stores energy in the form of fat. So I did some research and I made sure I try to break this down enough for you guys. In my understanding, because I'm not a scientist, in my understanding, this means they're measuring how sleep affects your metabolism and your energy, specifically through your skeletal muscles. So one of the study's conclusions are that levels of structural proteins in skeletal muscle decrease in response to sleep loss. So your skeletal muscle is a type of muscle mostly found attached to your bones in your body. So for example, that would be, your biceps, because they're attached to your... I took anthropology last semester. I forgot what the bones are called. I didn't really pay attention in that class, but it's attached to, the bone in your arm. You guys get the point. It's attached to your bones. So this is really something you should take into consideration, because, skeletal muscles are the type of muscles you actually are working out for the most part, when you're lifting weights and things like that, or running or anything like that. So just keep in mind that there are also 2 other types of muscles. There are your smooth and your cardiac muscles. You don't really see those. Your smooth muscles you don't really see, and your cardiac muscles are, inside your body, so you can't really see those. Also, their studies support the notion that curtailed sleep can promote a catabolic state in skeletal muscle. So this means that the lack of sleep has many side effects on the muscle. In this case, the catabolic state that it's talking about, its side effects are things such as extreme fatigue, joint and muscle pain, and sleeplessness. Now this site does not say how likely this is to happen and with how much sleep deprivation is actually required to trigger this state, so take this with a grain of salt. Alright, if we're going to be talking about sleep and muscle, we can't forget to talk about testosterone. Now again, ladies, I'm sorry, I don't know enough about your hormones to talk about it, so I'm going to speak for us males. So does sleep affect testosterone? Let's find out. So a 2015 study measures the sleep effects on testosterone in 10 males with the mean age of 24.3 years old. So I guess they got 0.3 of a person. No, I'm just messing. That's the average age. The subjects were sleeping 8 hours a night for 1 week prior, so they all had enough sleep prior to this study. The subjects were put on a 11-day study, sleeping for 10 hours for 3 nights, and then put on a sleep restriction for about 5 hours a night for the remaining 8 days. So the results were shocking. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, the daytime testosterone levels were actually decreased by 10 to 15% when sleeping those 5 hours less every night. But keep in mind, this was in young men whose testosterone was already higher, or the highest they'll ever be in their life, because they're young men. It's safe to say that this is more of an issue for older men whose testosterone is actually lowering, because actually, according to my research here, normal aging is associated with a decrease in testosterone levels by about 1 to 2% every year. So if you're of older age, it is safe to say that you need your sleep more than other people just for reasons of your testosterone. So does sleep affect your physical output and energy levels? You're probably thinking, yeah, duh, but let's find out. I just spit there, low-key. In a 2018 study that took evidence from 5 electronic databases dealing with inadequate sleep, resistance exercise, and performance/physiological outcomes. So basically they took a bunch of information from other people's databases. So according to this study, inadequate sleep impairs maximal muscle strength in compound movements when performed with specific interventions designed to increase motivation, such as caffeine or a pre-workout. So like I just said, this study did not do its own data study. It just compiled other people's data and kind of made a conclusion based off of it. So keep that in mind. So this study may be a little inaccurate for that reason, but it's reasonable to assume that sleep does impact your physical strength. Now here's another study to kind of back up that idea. So according to a 2013 study, they came up with a similar conclusion that sleep does affect your physical energy, except this one actually has some data to back it up. So this study took 14 young normal weight men and put them into 2 different groups. So the first group staying awake for a whole 24 hours, and the second group getting a normal amount of sleep for 8 hours a night. So here are the results. According to the study, the rise in postprandial energy expenditure after breakfast was 20% lower than after a night of permitted sleep. So this means that a person's energy expenditure, which is the amount of energy required to carry out physical functions, was 20% lower with no sleep for a night after the postprandial period, which means after lunch or dinner. So it is unlikely that you will be pulling all-nighters all the time, but after reading this, it is safe to say that less sleep correlates to less energy expenditure. So I know what you're thinking. Anderson, I'm way more confused after watching this video than when I first came into this video. So relax, take a deep breath. I'm gonna break it all down to you and give you a simple conclusion. So at the end of the day, everyone's body responds differently to sleep. So pay attention to your energy levels and your mental and physical levels, and just keep track of how your body responds to less and more sleep. And what I suggest is you try to find your sweet spot for sleep. What I mean by that is like the minimum amount of sleep required for you to just have and be in a good mood. Not just like be awake, like be in a good mood. What is the minimum amount? So I noticed mine is about 7.5 to 8 hours, and that's with me working out 4 times a week. Probably like 5 times a week, I'd say. Just keep that in mind. Anyways, here are my conclusions on sleep and gains. So here's the practical knowledge you're looking for. Sleep is a necessary part of recovery and performance. Sleep does not affect your physical output too much, but it does decrease with less sleep, especially if you are continually undersleeping. If you do get less sleep and don't want to affect your physical output too much, this research shows that you can actually add in something to increase your physical motivation, like caffeine or a pre-workout or something like that, to help compensate for your lack of sleep. Now, as for gaining muscle and losing fat, sleep does play a very important role in that. So consistent suboptimal sleep means more fat and less muscle retainment, and vice versa. So if you sleep more, you'll be able to retain more muscle and burn more fat. Also, less sleep means less testosterone, again, for males. Females, I'm sorry, I don't know enough about your hormone. I don't want to give you false information. Anyways, even if it's just minute, your testosterone will be lowered with less sleep. So that means less energy, and less fat burning ability, and less muscle retainment. Anyways, I'm trying my best not to ramble too much anymore, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And all I ask in return for making this video is to leave a like on the video. And if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe. I do videos on fitness, health, self-improvement, fashion. I'm gonna start doing some financial stuff for teenagers. If you like that kind of thing, subscribe, please. And yeah, hope you guys found this video helpful. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Your, what I like to call the sweet spot for the minimum